We continue here with our second part of our review for Chapter 3. So to start with, we have 3 problems here we're going to solve using the most efficient method we can, and then on the next panel we got a couple of more. So we start with trying to factor this thing. So if you have another method, you can do that. We can also do our box and diamond if that's your go-to method. So we multiply here and get our 12x squared, and we have a 7x down here. We want 2 things that multiply to be 12x squared and add to be 7x, so that will be 3x and 4x. So in our box, in one of the diagonals, we put the 4x squared, and the other one we put 3, and then the 4x and 3x go whichever way we would like it to. On the first row, the greatest common factor is 4x, and that makes this be an x, so that 4x times x is x squared. 4x times 1 will give us the 4x. X times 3 will be the 3x, and we confirm that 3 times 1 does equal 3. So that makes our factorization an x plus 1 and a 4x plus 3, and so we solve the equations that come from that, since those multiply to be 0, and get negative 1 or also negative 3/4. So those are our 2 solutions to that equation. The next one doesn't factor. We can try it, but we're going to get stuck then using the quadratic formula, which you need to know from memory. So, excuse me, that's the quadratic formula. So we get a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's going to be a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, that's 24 plus 4 is 28 all over 2. So that's going to become, since 28 is 4 times 7, that will become negative 2 plus or minus 2 squared is 7 over 2. We can split that fraction up and reduce each of those to get negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 7. The next one has a greatest common factor. I've got to pick my color here. Has a greatest common factor of 3x squared. When we factor that out, that leaves behind an x squared minus 4. That factors further into x minus 2, x plus 2. So from here, 3x squared equals 0 means x is 0. From x minus 2, we get a positive 2, and from x plus 2, we get a negative 2. We'll go to the next panel, and we're still continuing to solve these. So the first one, the easiest way, is to get that x minus 3 squared by itself. If we add the 2 to the other side, and then multiply by 2 gets us to 4. Now when we square root both sides, we'll get the positive and negative square root of 4, and then we can add that 2 to the other side and get 4 and 0 as our solutions. The next one, we have to make it equal to 0, so we can bring the 12x and the 8 to the same side of the equal sign. We can factor by grouping, so we're going to pair those up. Taking out the greatest common factor, we can pull out an x, and I think we can pull out, that was supposed to be a 12. I think I lost I lost the 1 and the 12. So if we factor out the 4, that will leave us a negative 4. We'll get 3x minus 2. That's good news because those are the same, which means we're on the right track. And if we do that, we can see that either 3x minus 2 is 0 or x minus 4 is 0. So here we'll get x equals 2/3 and also x equals 4. So those will be our 2 solutions. Let's go to another panel here. And in this case, what we're going to do is to what? So we have a few equations here that or a few problems where we get some information and we're going to try to come up with the quadratic function. So the first one, since we're given the x-intercepts, we should be thinking about starting with our factored form. So the x-intercepts are going to give us those values of r and s. So we know if negative 3, 0 is an x-intercept, then x plus 3 must be a factor. And if 4, 0 is an x-intercept, then x minus 4 is a factor. The point gives us a value for x and y that make that a true statement. So if we plug in the negative 9 for the y and the 0 for the x's, we get an equation that we can solve for a. So we got negative 9 equals a negative 12a. So a is going to be 9/12 or 3/4. And so that makes our equation y equals 3/4 times the x plus 3 times x minus 4. So there is our quadratic function. Now the next one gives us information about the vertex. So we should be thinking vertex form of a parabola. The vertex tells us an h and a k, so we have y equals a times x minus the h, which is 3 squared, plus the k, which is 1. The point again gives us an x and a y value, so negative 9 is a, that's what we're going to solve for. 1 minus 3 squared plus 1. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4a plus 1. Subtracting that 1 to the other side and then dividing by the 4 and reducing gets us a is negative 5/2. And so we get y equals, we know the a, the h again comes from our vertex, so we get x minus 3 squared plus 1. Very good. I think that should serve us well.